Spoilers for episode 1 and indirectly for the whole series. This is an erotic anime, a hentai as the English fandom would call it. You have been warned. The style may remind you of Tenchi Muyo, and that's because the creator and character designer is done by the same guy, Masaki Kajishima. This came out in September of 1998, the same year that stuff like Trigun came out, and it was the second year of the Pokemon anime. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime TV series started, the first One Piece OVA came out, and this was before the first TV series even came out, and the year the second part of Cowboy Bebop originally aired. The director, on the other hand, is Yamamoto Yosuke. He's worked on many anime, both director and storyboard roles. He's worked on Beakata HK and Welcome to the NHK, as well as many others. We start off with some unsettling imagery of a guy in a Japanese mask, also known as Hanya, staring at a woman. The Hanya mask often symbolises women obsessed with their jealousy for something. This is clearly a younger man with the thick fingers and the ears. A white Hanya mask tends to be for a woman of a higher class. The woman is barely wearing a yukata with her breasts partially exposed and essentially touching herself. The boy trips over and the woman finds out she's being watched and sees who it is. She reacts happily once realising who it is. This says a lot of things. She doesn't want just anyone looking at her, and because it's this person she is happy for this to be happening. She seems to know who's watching her, or at the very least is happy that it's only one person watching. She approaches him and goes to take off his mask while appearing demonic looking. And her eyes change colour, the angle changes, and she takes off his mask in a very menacing way. His mask is taken off, revealing partially what he looks like, and then we see the same young man on a train. The scene is done very well. It starts seeming at first that the boy is the evil demonic one, and he's wearing the demonic mask, and he's hiding in the shadows, and this puts him in a bad light, and the woman seems very vulnerable, but it quickly shows us that we are wrong, and, well, the demon woman is possessed. He stares out of a window, and that's what main characters seem to do in Japanese media. He arrives and no one is there to get him, giving off this big vibe of melancholy. But then it's interrupted by this foreign girl, and she starts saying the worst English I've seen since watching the last Japanese person in anime speak English.
Days, so I look around with curiosity. What's the matter? Did you hit a head? Do you have any pain? Where is the hospital near this? Oh, how do you take the responsibility?
Not much of what she says makes sense. I mean, she says stuff like, "It takes so much responsibility." Mostly just throwing out random phrases. This is Japan, so yes, they wouldn't understand it. Similar to how in Friends a guy says a German swear word, but it doesn't matter, since it's not American. There's so much English in anime today. Yeah, and the whole time we're getting lots of booby fan service, and a lot of repeated frames. The frames look good, but they are repeated. Then she goes straight for his elephant's trunk, and she gives this look like, "Yo, I got this." And she drops the clumsy foreign act straight away after touching him. A maid appears saying, "Gen-sama," and the foreigner girl leaves, saying bye boy, addressing him as someone of a lower status than her. Well, that's probably because she's older. The maid makes sure it's Gen, and she helps him with the luggage, and they head to Gen's new home. While Gen is like, "Yo, I don't need the help," she helps anyway, being the good stubborn maid that she is. This already establishes that she's a faithful maid and that Gen isn't used to receiving help like this, both with his physical reactions and what he says. The foreigner watches him while he's with his maid from a distance, and if you already didn't know, this is again indicating that the whole bumping into him wasn't a mere coincidence. The maid tells Gen her name is Beatrice, and Gen thought she would be older. She tells him she is 416 years old, and he doesn't react much to her saying her age is over 400 years old. What? She falls over and says she's alright since she's a maid. They talk about his grandmother that he's never met before, and how he didn't know his grandmother existed before his mother died. This is clearly indicating something is a bit up. I mean, why would she not tell him? It makes you think that, well, maybe she didn't want him to see his grandmother. The sun comes out and shines on her. As she moves along and sits next to Gen, the sun comes out and shines on Beth, and then she moves along and sits next to Gen. Well, I won't say anything too much, but that hint already kind of tells you something. She says she's over 400 years old, and she moves away from sunlight. And they're heading towards a mansion. Yeah, that's a lot of hints to what she is. Gen, though, is like, oh, she's close to me. Gen has a flashback as he sees his new home, thinking back to the start of the episode with his memories. So, what they used to travel was a limo, and you know him wearing the mask early on, it symbolises someone of a high status since it's a white Hanya mask. And this is foreshadowing him having some sort of ancient family, which links him to having a special bloodline. Especially with the intro being red-pink, which symbolises blood. Beatrice mentions the cherry blossoms, saying they are sacred. Yet again, hammering in the whole sacred blood thing. We see the grandmother wearing another Hanya mask from a distance. And Beatrice tells Gen that grandmother Sakura is here. And Sakura means cherry blossom, if you didn't already know. Then we hear the grandmother speaking in a tone that's clearly in a way of an older person. She says it's been so long since they've seen each other, and she thinks he wouldn't remember. You could see this as a throwaway line, but if we look at it, what we've seen in the last 6 minutes, we've never seen of him in the past where he sees this lady next to a cherry blossom tree. And there's a cherry blossom tree there. It's made even worse that she tells him that she met him 12 years ago in spring, and spring is when cherry blossoms are blooming. We know already this family has some sort of way of living for longer periods of time. Then wouldn't it make sense for that woman near the tree to be his grandmother? And that's what she's alluding to. And then you could have the final reveal be that that's her. At this point I'm like, great. I figured out the mystery in the first act of the series. Of course the journey always is better than the whole reveals kind of thing. I mean, when someone spoils something, like say, oh, this person kills this. I mean, you're not ruining the whole thing, but it's really bad when you can kind of figure out the whole story in the first 6 minutes. This is Japanese created media, and it's erotic at that. So it would make sense that the grandma looks younger than she should be for her age. So that's another clue to it being her. And yes, I'm already getting too ahead of myself. Grandma Sakura tells Gen about her being in a weak condition, and she wears the mask due to an accident. And while my first thought is, she wears it so she doesn't reveal her identity to him, and also that she doesn't show how young she is. Well, how young looking she is anyway. Gen gives her an ornament for his mother's shrine, Sakurako, and it says on it, pure golden and cherry blossom. Well, I don't understand pure golden. I do understand the cherry blossom bit. It's clearly linked to the whole family, with both the flashback having the cherry blossom tree, and the cherry blossom being outside the house. The name of the grandma is Sakura, which is cherry blossom, and his name of his mother is Sakurako, which is just a ko at the end of Sakura. So yeah, you got these 4 big links here. So okay, I understand that part. Sakura cries when she sees this, and we get a better look at her face through the mask, and she doesn't look that old. Gen goes to comfort his grandmother. Then it zooms a bit into something on his collar, which looks like a tracking device. It shows the foreigner girl listening to this conversation. Sakura tells Gen that Beatrice will take care of his needs, if you get what I mean, and he'll be going to college tomorrow. Then Beatrice asks if he wants a bath or he wants to go to bed. And this reminds me of a similar phrase that's said by a lot of Japanese wives that talk to their husbands. And they ask, do you want a bath, food, or me? But he says, oh, he doesn't want anything, and she leaves. Gen looks at the mask. Beatrice collapses while walking through the hall with the sunlight on her. This is done simply to give us another hint about the whole sun thing, and seems rather unnecessary. It's night now, and Gen is in bed, and he looks at the white mask, and thinks back to his memory. And he talks to himself about he thought it was a dream, and who is that person in his dream? Well, memory. Then we see the girl in his memory next to a sakura tree, or at least it looks like her from the back, and she's looking at him through a window. It's the morning, and Beatrice says she's sorry, most likely because he's probably late for school, and she probably didn't wake up in time, since she collapsed earlier. Gen doesn't want to be called Gen-sama, or Master Gen, and Beatrice is like, no, I will call you that, and Gen rudely interrupts and runs out of the house. Beatrice collapses yet again in the sun. Poor Beatrice, she does so much. The foreigner girl is waiting outside with a camera, stalking him a bit. He's at the college and told to go to the old building, and he's greeted to a moaning girl in the infirmary, which Gen peeks into and watches the shadow of the naughtiness going on. There's not much to say here. It's just one of the teachers getting off one of the female students, and the female teacher is being rather dominant. Then we get the cliche hentai thing where the screen flashes when something that feels particularly good happens. While he's watching, someone knocks on his back. She starts going on about how she's been looking for him and he's not well dressed. And she doesn't stop talking despite again being like, "Yo, shh!" The purple-haired student runs out from hearing this, and the teacher tells Ayumi, the brown-haired girl, "Oh, what are you doing?" The teacher knows who he is and helps him with his tie, and Ayumi drags him along to class. Ayumi asks him if he saw the naughtiness and tells him it's her mother. Then we see another teacher with long purple hair, which of course immediately makes me think of the girl in the memories, and the one looking at him through the window. Then we see by what Ayumi says that she's called Sakurako, which is the same name as Gen's mother. Huh. Wait, that complicates matters. He's entranced as he sees her, and instantly links her to the woman in his memories. She tells him she's an academic advisor from today forward. He starts going on about his memory and how he's seen before. Both the girls act like, "What?" when they hear him say that, and Sakurako laughs and ignores what he says. He gets introduced into class as he stares at his new teacher. The students must be like, "Yo, he is totally into her." And Ayumi is already G'ing him, also known as staring. He approaches Ayumi, the class president, and asks her about Sakurako. And Ayumi is like, "Ask her yourself." And I'm already squinting my eyes and being like, yes, she's the tsundere character. And she tells him all the boys are after the teacher. And not just the boys. Lesbians. Lesbians! Lesbians. Lesbians. Then we see another lesbian student with the other teacher. I get it, she's a lesbian and she likes her. You serious? Better zoom in. I timed it. It takes like 5 seconds on this zoom on her. The foreign girl listens into the house using the phone line, and then she hears a crash. Gen comes home and calls for Beth, but can't find her for a bit, until he finds her collapsed and goes to the curtains for sunlight. I mean, how many times does she collapse in this episode? Beth goes into the corner due to the sunlight. Gen still doesn't understand what's going on, and Beth tells him to close the curtains. And he doesn't do what he's told. Ugh, I hate it when people do that. She closes the curtains with a scream. Beth tells him she's not normal and tells him to stay away. Beth gives him a hug and cries, while Gen doesn't know what's going on. She asks him for his aqua permanence, and my first thought is sperm, since aqua means water in Spanish Latin, and semen is liquid, so... And this is 20 minutes in, and there's been no erotic material, so I'm thinking maybe, you know what I mean? And Miss Foreigner catches on to the whole aqua permanence thing, which must be something to do with what she's looking for. She uses some sort of magical power, which makes it so he can't move. Then it's blowjob time! But with romantic sad music? Don't look at my face, I'm coming! I create swirl effects when I'm getting it on. You better watch out. I come gold, what's up with that? Look at my shininess. I shouldn't be talking about this scene like this. It's really supposed to be a touching scene, but it's hard to, pun intended, to feel sad in a scene like this. Because his semen is gold. I mean, adding some sad music doesn't make a scene sad automatically. Actually, it makes a lot of things look silly. Wait, gold? Maybe that pure golden thing they were talking about, well, that was written on that thing, is about sperm, maybe? Then she holds his gold sperm in her hand and she marks that it's golden. Wait, so I was right. Then Gen is ashamed that his cum is golden, and I'm like, I mean, you could have told someone, yeah, and I guess it's embarrassing to tell someone. And yes, I could see why you think you're sick. But the whole situation is kind of ludicrous. And we know he isn't sick due to the whole pure golden thing. And the viewer isn't going to feel anything for this complaining he's doing. The whole scene's purpose is to make you feel emotion towards him, but the thing is, he's alright, so yeah. Then we start seeing the shrine of his mother with a picture of his mother on it, who looks a lot like Sakurako, but with shorter hair. And it's hard to say it's hard to say about the hair colour since it's grayscale. He mentions he's never cried before, even when his mother died, and is scared of being alone, and, well, they hug some more. She stands before him with her glorious butt showing. They start doing the jiggy jiggy, and he asks her if she's used to this, and she says, yeah, but it's been 112 years. And he's just like, huh? He doesn't seem to understand that, like, she's over 400 years old. And they get it on some more. She mentions she was alone until she was allowed into this house due to the kind grandmother, which makes me think, so she's been living for a long time, and it has nothing to do with the Sakura family. What's her backstory? I wonder if we'll see that in the future. While the foreign girl listens on all embarrassed, I would probably be a bit embarrassed too. They do some chewing. Then Gen decides to ask about the whole aqua permanence thing, which Beth decides not to tell him until he is ready, so that he can buy the next episode on VHS. Gen goes to school. Miss Bad English comes in, and she asks him to come along in the car. Then she's like, yo, you're not giving me attention since you got some action last night. He got his fill, if you catch what I mean. And then she says aqua permanence to catch his attention. This gets him in the car. She tells him the whole golden sperm is a sign of everlasting youth, which as usual Gen doesn't understand. She goes straight for his banana again, as she did before, and she wants to get to know him better. And it's the end of the episode. And the credits has no animation, but man does have a rocking song going on. So to conclude, did this OVA need to have sex scenes in it? No, it didn't. Does it make it bad that there are sex scenes in it? No, it doesn't. The biggest problem that this whole anime OVA thing has is it gives a lot of hints to what's going to happen in the future, and by examining those hints, it's really obvious to discover what's going on, and it kind of leaves no mystery because the hints are so obvious. Your average viewer isn't going to see any of these hints. But it's kind of like watching a detective story, but knowing who the murderer is in the first 2 minutes. And, like, the murder story is like 2 hours long. And you're like, come on, can, like, no one figure this out? Like, these are, like, paid professionals. Why am I the only one that can figure this out? It's that kind of thing. The animation's done really well. I really like that. And the story is well structured, but there's a lot of collapsing going on and all that stuff. So I would recommend this, but if you're thinking of like a really hard to discover story, as I've already said many times, you're not going to find it here. It's got some good animation here, even though you could probably make this a just a motion comic or something like that, or even a manga, and it'd probably be as good. Actually, as a manga, this would probably be better. It's an animated feature, but it doesn't need to be an animated feature. You could make this manga, and you could still be good with it. Of course, they're trying to get a lot more money with this than a manga would get, so, it's a bit different, of course. There are some like facial reactions, those like 2-minute segments you couldn't quite get from just a manga. But overall, I do kind of feel like it fails as just being an animated feature. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making more of these anime review and analyst things of episodes. And I've got this other channel where I do Let's Plays. If you want to go and click on that button, you can leave a comment if you're like, I hate this video. Or you can be like, oh, I love your video, make more. I don't know. We can just be like, it was okay. It was okay. Could do better next time. But hey, even is that good? No, that's not really very constructive. But, well, see you next time, maybe.